few months ago, I released a video where I played through Pokémon Crystal while only using Pokémon that don't have any evolutions. So, I thought I would continue this concept into Pokémon Emerald, where there are quite a few Pokémon with no evolutionary line added to the game. In Pokémon Crystal, I had a choice of 42 Pokémon, albeit around a fourth of those were legendaries. So naturally, I have the much larger total number of catchable Pokémon in this game of 17. And to make matters worse, I don't have access to Pokémon like Roselia, which I would in Ruby and Sapphire. In this illustrious group of Pokémon, I can use the likes of Spinda, Volbeat, Chimecho, and many more. Furthermore, of the 17 Pokémon I have access to, which does include any legendaries this time around, there isn't a single Pokémon I can get that learns Surf, Dive, or Waterfall, all of which are required to progress in the story and beat the game. This meant I had to get creative, and there was one Pokémon that fit the bill. It could learn all the HMs I needed, and was a Pokémon I didn't use in the last challenge, Mantine. So, I swapped the starters, and started this challenge in Little Root Town. I did have a plan for which Pokémon I was planning to catch this time around, however, in some cases, I hadn't really looked into the movesets of these Pokémon, which led to some very fun Pokémon trivia throughout this video. For example, did you know that Chimecho is So we get the Pokédex and start our adventure. Meet May and Wally, and head off into the Petalburg Forest, where we still don't have a Pokémon to capture. We meet the first of the two evil teams, Team Aqua, and continue on our way. This is where we face the first gym, which fortunately for us is a rock gym, and even more fortunately, we learn Bubble Beam just in time to make this gym battle quite trivial. We then save Pico, and are able to travel to Dewford Town. Being in Dewford actually allows us to get our first Pokémon, and this is where we can head to the Granite Cave, because we need to go there anyways to say hi to Steven. This Pokémon that we do want to capture is Sableye, a Pokémon with no weaknesses in this generation, but it also isn't very strong. But that doesn't mean it's useless, far from it in fact. Being part Ghost type means that Brawly can't touch us with any of his Pokémon, and our biggest issue is having enough power points on our moves to defeat him. However, spamming Nightshade does work in the end, even though I did have to use an Ether because I ran out of PP. With Brawly defeated, we can head to Slateport City, and catch another team member, in Minun. This electric type is incredibly useful with the amount of water types in this game, and will also be useful against Team Aqua. Speaking of which, Team Aqua took a field trip to the aquarium for a fun day out of looking at the fishes and stealing the Devon parts. We also encounter May on our way to Mauville before defeating every single trainer we possibly could before taking on Watson and his tricky team of electric type Pokémon. Watson may have been laughing, but it wasn't because his Emerald team is actually difficult. And our team has a big weakness to electric types. His first two Pokémon aren't that big a deal, but it's the next two that are. First up is Magneton, who took down Sableye fairly easily. I thought Mantine wouldn't be able to do much of anything, but to my surprise, one Bubble Beam was enough to take it down. But that's not the hard part. This one is. Manectric. Mantine clearly wasn't going to serve. Okay, so at least we get off the Alright, so Minun comes into battle, and this is where I decide to use a strategy even scummier than double team stalling. After using Thunder Wave, we became faster than Manectric, and then, using Encore, we could lock Manectric into using Howl. Better than that, we were always first to move when Encore ends, and can start it straight back up again and keep chipping away with Spark. And so yes, this is how I managed to beat Watson. I wouldn't say I'm necessarily proud of it. Despite our scummy tactics, it did help us reach a new area of the game, one with access to a whole host of new Pokémon we could use for our team. The first Pokémon we catch is a Torkoal. Fun fact, did you know that Torkoal is in fact just a fire type, and not a fire rock type? 'Cause I didn't, and I learnt the hard way in this challenge when I assumed it was just fire rock. Getting to this point did mean we had to teach Sableye Rock Smash, which made it not as useful on our team, and I was okay with this because of some of the next Pokemon we would be catching. One of which was an old friend in Skarmory. I didn't have plans to use Skarmory long term with some of the other Pokemon in this generation, but we'll talk about that later. On our way to Meteor Falls to rescue a scientist, we could have picked up a Seviper, but I felt it wouldn't be too necessary with the other Pokemon I was planning to get, that being Solrock. But first I had to deal with the soap, that is Team Aqua and Team Magma, rescue a scientist, and then finally could I encounter the Solrock. So now with a full team, we went to Mount Chimney, defeated Maxie and Team Magma, and confused Archie for some reason. The fourth gym is the first gym that was not a big deal, as Mantine was able to deal with the fire types easily enough, and that meant we would head all the way back to Petalburg, where our father was waiting to challenge us. This battle was tricky. We do have Rock Smash, but it is a low damaging move, and it's also our only fighting type move. However, after facing Spinda, which was way more difficult than expected, Vigoroth came out next. And the key there was staying alive, and where we got to see Rock Smash finally come in handy with its defense reduction. But we ended up getting all the way to Slacking, and boy, this got tricky. I knew that as long as I hit Slacking, then detected, I could stay alive. But Slacking was just too bulky, so I had to swap over to Torkoal. I spammed Curse and Protect to make the world's slowest moving Pokemon, but also one of the hardest hitting Pokemon. We then two-shot Slacking after that with Body Slam, and Lanoon then came out, so we swapped into Sableye as Lanoon had nothing that could touch it, and we came out with our 5th gym badge. Wally's dad then gave us the HM for Surf, and finally Mantine has a good move to use. This means we can see Steven again for a few seconds before heading north to save the Weather Institute from Team Aqua. We do get a cast form here, but that really isn't the Pokemon I'm looking to use. In fact, there are 2 Pokemon here that I want to catch, the first of which is Absol, and becomes our replacement for Sableye. Fun fact, out of the handful of dark moves that Absol learns, the strongest one is Bite, with a base damage of 60. Fun! Also, all dark types are special attacks, and Absol is very much a physical attacker, meaning its type advantage is useless. More fun! That does not take away from how good Absol is. It just meant I had to be more creative with the movesets. The next Pokemon to catch was Tropius, who actually does learn moves that are both grass and flying and above 60 base damage. But in this game, it really only had to use against Wishcash, so I decided to keep Skarmory in the team instead. Steven gives us a device to reveal Kecleon before we take on the 6th gym. Luckily, we have Minun, who was quietly being a great Pokemon to have, and Solrock, who's quite bulky. This combo, plus Torkoal with Flamethrower, made this gym fairly easy to deal with. We learn at Mount Pyre that a blue and red stone have been taken by Team Magma and Aqua, and it is up to us to run around the entire region trying to stop them. First stop is back at Mount Chimney and unlocking the secret magma hideout and defeating Maxie. Next, we head to an interview where Archie steals an entire submarine. Then we head all the way back to Lily Cove City and enter the Team Aqua hideout to watch Archie get away again, but at least we pick up the Master Ball, so it wasn't a complete waste of time. This is where I decide that saving the world is interfering with our gym challenges too much, and take on Tate and Liza, who weren't that tricky, but were very good at stalling my combo of Absol and Mantine, which made the battle more frustrating than difficult. Lunatone spent most of the battle using Calm Mind, which made it hard to take down, but eventually we got there after Skarmory came out and started using Steel Wing. Getting our 7th gym badge wasn't actually a waste of time at all really, because it meant we could use Dive, and also we needed access to the space station because of Team Magma. And hey, we get to battle with Steven this time. After our double battle, Maxie decides that trying to expand the landmass of the Earth was a bad idea, and gives up, which is nice, but we still have Archie to stop. And there's still a wild Groudon on the loose. So we head to the underwater cavern to go and find him. At this point, we could replace Mantine with either a Relicanth or a Corsola, but after all we've been through with our starter, and not wanting a 3rd rock type on the team, I decided to go against that. We defeat Archie, but he still releases Kyogre, and then realizes what he's done. So it's up to us one more time. To meet up with Wallace, head to the Sky Pillar, and awaken yet another legendary Pokemon to stop the other legendary Pokemon. Then, at Sootopolis City, Rayquaza comes down from the heavens and saves the world. We then make our way to the final gym battle against Juan, and despite really only having Minun to take down his team, we eventually get our final badge, and can be ready to head to the Pokemon League. Now, at this point, I could go and get Kyogre or Groudon. Using Suicune and Crystal was just a little different. I also can't get any of the Regis in this game, because that would require me catching a Wailord, and in this challenge, I'm not allowed to catch one. And finally, Latios or Latias would become roaming legendaries, only in the post-game. It's not really useful for me. That said, if you are actually more interested in a more comprehensive playthrough of Pokémon Emerald, I did do a full Let's Play on it. Shameless plug over, we head to Evergrande City, head into Victory Road, and meet up with Wally for the first time in a while. He actually was a bit tricky at times, but we defeated him in the end anyways. And not long after, we made it to the Elite Four. Now, the Elite Four themselves weren't too tricky. My main strategy with Sydney was using Absol after a few Swords Dances. This didn't quite work out as well as I'd hoped, but it still wasn't that tricky. Next up was Phoebe, and I was basically using the same strategy. I had taught Absol Shadow Ball, which was a real hard-hitting move. But while the first 2 Elite Four members were easier, the next 2 wouldn't be. Galacia was difficult. Despite some heavy lifting from Solrock and Minun, Walrein nearly swept our team, and it was up to Absol to clean up and narrowly win for us. For Drake, we utilized pretty much the same Swords Dance Shadow Ball strategy that had been so effective against Phoebe, and made it to the champion, where we got absolutely humbled. We got through half of Wallace's team before Tentacruel finally took out my last Pokemon. But I didn't give up. This team had been through some adversities in this series, but strategy had been our friend the entire time, and we needed a better one against Wallace. It did not take long to go through and defeat the Elite Four again, utilizing the same or similar strategies as we had before, and since it didn't take long to get back to Wallace, we challenged him again. We initially messed up against his first Pokemon, but then I dealt with Wailord by paralyzing it, before using Skarmory's Sand Attack to lower its accuracy. Then, we set up with Absol. Oh, and you can just imagine, with maxed out attack and a few double teams for good measure, that the rest of this battle didn't take very long to complete. And we had defeated Wallace and completed the challenge. And what a great team it was. Sure, it wasn't the most balanced, nor did I really have the same connection with this team that I did with my Pokemon Crystal team. But there were some exceptions. Mine and Absol easily won my heart during this challenge, despite some of their frustrations. And, just like in Pokemon Crystal, I proved that you can defeat Pokemon Emerald with a team of Pokemon who can evolve. Or did I? I did mention right at the beginning, this challenge was impossible without Mantine. And unfortunately that's the truth. So actually I have to end this video with, it wasn't possible to beat Pokemon Emerald without adding Mantine into the game. So long, and see you next time.